Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm your host, the Dharma Guy, and of course, you are watching Dharma Time here on WPSN99.com. And as always, I am joined with, let me go ahead and Adam here, the Dupe Doctor. What's up, man?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. Full disclosure for everybody who's just tuning in or who is watching this on YouTube or listening via one of the mini podcast outlets we're on. You guys did not hear the pre-show discussion we were having, and I was trying to convince the dope doctor here to shave his head, and he agreed to do it if he has the courage, or if he can find the
Yep.
courage to do it.
Oh no, no, I could do no. The courage is not the issue.
And what might help him find courage is if we do a donation or some sort of a campaign. So Frank, I see that you're on here. I say we start some sort of a
Start the pit.
campaign. And what's the number we're looking at here? What's the number we need to hit for the donation for the Now Matters More Foundation, of which you can see behind him is what we do. He is the founder. I'm the president. The foundation is called the Now Matters More Foundation. Now it stands for Needs Over Wants. And what we do is we help individuals struggling with the disease of addiction. It's a nasty one. People need help. That's what we're here to do. We help put you into treatment. We help find the right place for you. We vet them all. We figure out what's best, and we put you in there. And when possible, we will scholarship what we can to help any financial barriers from getting you help. So, what's the number, man? What's the number you're working at here?
I don't know,
I'm thinking
man.
$8.
No,
That's
no,
a
no.
good
I mean,
even number right there.
look, man. I think that if we would raise a certain amount of money, whatever that is, so I mean, obviously, I would like to start at 5 or 2,500, but it's probably like a better, more realistic number is like $1,000. If we could raise $1,000, I'll shave the whole damn thing.
Frank says I'm gonna have to shave him because the
No,
barbers
I'll do
barbers
it.
are open now.
I'll do it.
Well,
I'll
the
do it.
barbershops have actually opened as of I think today, right, or yesterday.
No,
Yeah.
I will shave. I will shave my head completely bald. I have no issue with that. Because I'm curious as to what it would look like. But I think we should raise a certain amount of money for the Now Matters More Foundation. And what would be a number, Frank? What do you think a good number should be?
$8.
So we can get on to the show that we're actually on.
Oh, Frank says $999.99 out the door, so $1,000. And Frank is good for all of it. So thanks, Frank.
Yeah.
We're good,
Right.
man. We're gonna do it.
Sounds like someone's killing a puppy.
I don't hear anything. Oh, over in your house, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, so
We need to come up with a number, and then stay tuned to the other shows. We'll figure it out.
yeah, we'll figure it out.
But we're gonna cut my hair. My hair right now, I'm telling you, it's like 3 feet.
Yeah, I think I saw you post a picture the other day, and it was getting
Feet.
rather long there.
Yeah, but it's curly. If I
all right.
uncurl it, it's like 3 feet.
So, as always, we're doing Dharma Time here, and we try to talk about spiritually based topics or issues, or at least give a perspective coming from a spiritual perspective. And so I talked to Louis this morning. First and foremost, neither one of us are in a very conversational mood lately, apparently. His because he's feeling under the weather, me just because I guess I'm just that time of the month, maybe, I don't know. But I think we found a topic that we can both get a little fired up about and talk about, and that is tribalism, right? So we talked to him this morning, and there is some specific things happening in the media lately that has got everybody kind of up in arms, if you will.
Yep.
No pun intended. And I think that instead of focusing on those specific events, which I'm sure we'll address, we
Right.
want to talk about the bigger picture here. And the bigger picture that what him and I have both noticed, if you will, it's been going on for a little while, but it seems to getting progressively worse, and that is tribalism. And I don't mean tribal as in, we're out there in our loincloths and stuff like that. No, I'm talking about tribalism in the sense of you kind of pick a group that you connect with or you feel connected to, and that's like your team now. And what seems to be happening is people seem to be defending their team at no matter what cost. They don't really seem to care about fact or truth or perception. It's all about my team is right, your team is wrong. And it can be like where the Highlander, apparently there could be only one. And so we've kind of disintegrated into this kind of weird tribalistic type war that we have going on, man, where it's like, us versus them. And there's a lot of us and a lot of them. Back in the day, I remember when I was younger, it was mostly a race thing, or it was also like a geographical thing. But now it's turned into like a red and blue thing, like politicals. There's male, female, or whatever gender you subscribe to. There's black white. That's never going to go away apparently.
Woke,
Woke or
woke, unwoke.
unwoke. There's just so many different tribes
I would
now.
say woke or traditional.
Okay. But it just seems like there's so many different tribes and so many people are clinging to these particular tribes, and kind of running with it. And I think that's causing more problems than it's actually solving. And so I think that, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, first and foremost, I don't want to act. I want to make sure I put out there that I don't necessarily see anything wrong with, subscribing to a specific group that you feel welcomed in. I don't have a problem with that. I'm a dude and I like the fellas, I think we're like-minded. We all hang out and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that I'm a fool to believe that men are always right and women are always wrong. Like that, to me, I think is where things go too far, right? And so, if you're watching this and you're thinking that I'm attacking you for having a group that you associate with, that couldn't be further from the case. What I am talking about is when it goes wrong, right? When it goes too far, when it kind of supersedes our ability to critically think, and we just react from that group's perspective, right? I know the biggest one that's in the news right now, and I guess we might as well just jump in with both feet and start there.
Yeah.
The biggest one that's in the news, and Louis, I know you just looked it up, and I'm still controlling everything here, so you might have to correct me on a name or something like that. But
I don't remember the name. It's
essentially up in Georgia. There was an incident that happened. Once again, I apologize if I get any facts wrong, but the fact that I have to preface all that should show you where we're at in tribalistic times at the moment, because normally I would be able just to have a normal conversation with people and there would be a certain amount of acceptance as far as the message, as opposed to each individual fact. But where we're at now, I feel the need that I have to preface it so nobody tries to jump all over me about a mistake I might make. But I digress. Back to the original point, and that is, up in Georgia, there was a situation where there was a gentleman who was
Ahmaud Arbery or something like that.
yeah, I don't know his name, but he was an African American gentleman. He was running through a neighborhood, and from his perspective, or at this point, if you're doing tribalistic stuff, from the African American community or anybody who feels that they're being oppressed, their perspective is he was kind of out for a jog, minding his own business, when he was accosted by two white gentlemen with guns, and he ended up dead from that altercation. From the white people's perspective, or the other tribe, if you will, what they're saying is he was previously found in somebody else's home that was under construction. He looked suspicious. He was running through a neighborhood. Didn't seem as if he fit. They, I believe, one of them was an ex-cop or something. They felt the need to go and do some version of a citizen's arrest, some sort of questioning, holding them, whatever. They were trying to call the authorities, and they were trying to basically, what they felt to be, bring this person to justice. When they got there, the gentleman then started to fight with them, and shots rang out. Black guy's dead. Now it's white versus black apparently all over the media.
But is it? I mean, wait a minute. I mean, I hesitate to call it a white black thing necessarily.
In the media, it is.
Well, but that's the media that likes to do that. I would hesitate that we do that. You know what I mean? Because I don't think
that's what's all over the media. I'm just trying to get facts.
I understand, but when we're talking about the white community, first of all, we do know the white community is bigger than everybody else's community, so it's a lot more people, and there's a lot of different variations to all communities. We tend to just bucket everybody, right? And so I think everybody's just watching what we're watching, right? And everybody sees these videos, and first one video, everybody reacts to this video. And so here's what I'm saying to this in line of what we're talking about. I believe in due process. The reason I believe in due process, let me explain it. The reason I believe in due process is because I was once arrested or in trouble. I've known a lot of people just like me who were arrested or in trouble, and I've known a lot of people that have had some very long sentences, whether it be correct or incorrect. That's not my call.
Right.
What I do believe in then is due process, because I came from the mindset that not only do you have to catch me doing it, but you better be able to prove it in a court of law, because I come from a country, the United States of America, where I'm innocent until proven guilty. I'm not guilty just because it fits your narrative. Yep. I'm just reminding you, that's the perspective I initially come from.
Yeah, well, that's what it's supposed to be.
Guilty. I don't want the cops to say I did something that I didn't do. I don't want them trying to arrest me for things I didn't do. And so I came from that, what I think fits what we're talking about today is that for some reason, people that think just like me, when the story is about someone like me, like if it was a Latino, all of a sudden I find me and my community of Latinos being like, oh, well, the Latino must be innocent,
Right.
or buying into it, just like when it was our friends, if it's your friend, you just buy into it, right? Even if
Sure.
you know your friend does some dirt, you'd be like, well, did they have a warrant? Were they able to search your car? Or why did they, so we believe in that when it fits the narrative that you want it to fit. But when it's opposite of that, all of a sudden, screw the due process. If I saw one white dude do something bad to a Latino or one white dude do something bad to a black dude, I said, see, there it is. And
Yep.
it was guilty immediately.
Yep.
So I think what fits what we're talking about today is that, isn't it odd that we all tend to do that? When it fits your narrative, you go on whatever side fits your narrative. You only believe in due process when it's against your tribe. But when it's not against your tribe, what?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I do my best to not do that. I mean, I'm not going to lie and pretend like I don't have my own biases, because I do. But I do my best to let my critical thinking skills surpass my biases, because I've been on both sides of that, right? I mean, I'm a big dude. I've got tattoos and things of that nature. I look like a criminal for most places. I've been in situations where I've been presumed guilty and I didn't think it was fair and I didn't like it. I've also been in situations where I thought other people were guilty, even in my own home.
Yeah.
There's times where I'll find myself having to apologize to one of my kids or my wife, because I'll see something, I'll immediately think it was them, and I'll start to get irritated, and I realize later it wasn't, and then I have to come back, but you know what, I'm sorry, like I just saw this and this, and I just assumed it was you, and I apologize. I shouldn't have done
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And that's called critical thinking, and I don't see a lot of that today. What drives me nuts is I don't like that the way things are currently constructed, be it media, social media, whatever it is, whoever's responsible for it, I don't like the fact that people feel the need, including myself, to defend our stances on things these days. Meaning, I watched the video. There's only two videos that I'm aware of. One video is of a gentleman fighting with somebody else, somebody in the back of a truck. I hear a shot ring out, and the guy on the black dude eventually hits the ground. And there's another video of a similar looking black gentleman, I don't know if it's the same one or not, in a construction site, looking around, I don't know what he's doing, and then he leaves. When I first saw those, my first reaction, because I saw the hype, I have Facebook just like everybody else, and I see what drew my attention to it was everybody trashing, like, why is it okay to kill black people? And how come? I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So I was expecting to see something that I felt matched the level of
Yeah,
anger.
I agree.
So I was like,
agree.
oh, and what are we about to watch here? So I finally found the video, and when I turned it on, I was kind of disappointed in the sense of, to me, it didn't seem so outlandish. Like, I couldn't tell what was happening. I
I
saw,
was expecting to see Rodney Kingish kind of stuff.
yeah, I was expecting to see
I got to
something that
admit
was
that.
so abhorrent and so, obviously wrong. And to me, that it felt more subjective. It felt like, depending on who you're rooting for, if you will, you can take different things from that video. And so for me, when I watched the video, all I saw was grainy video. First of all, I couldn't make anybody out. I don't know what happened 5 minutes before the video shot, so I don't know what led up to it. I don't know what was happening in it. All I saw was two people wrestling over what looked to be a gun. Some dude in the back of a truck. Still don't know really what he was doing. And then I hear a shot ring out. It might have been two, and then nothing immediately after that. Within a few seconds, the black guy eventually kind of walks away and drops to the ground. So to me, from the video I take, somebody shot that guy. I don't know who. I don't know what happened beforehand. I don't know anything. It was very, very hard to walk away from that video feeling, adamant about anything other than something bad just happened. That's the only thing I can walk away with personally. And even with the second video, when it shows the gentleman in the construction site, I don't know that guy well enough to know if it was him or not. Like, I can't really tell. The clothes look somewhat similar, I guess.
Right.
But he didn't really do anything wrong other than being in the wrong place. I mean, he shouldn't have been in there if he didn't have permission. But it didn't seem like he destroyed anything. It didn't seem like he took anything. It just seemed like he put his head where it shouldn't have been. Could have been the same guy. I don't know. But what I don't like, though, is me simply stating factual information to a certain crowd makes me look like I'm anti-black.
Right.
And that's what I don't like. That's where I think we're at in today's world with this tribalistic stuff. Yeah. And it's not just black, white. I mean, you and I talk politics all the time, and we're both independent. I'm not red or blue, but yet, depending on who I'm talking to, if I'm not completely willing to throw Trump under the bus and act like he, smacked my child, then I'm a racist Republican and I hate Democrats.
Right.
And it's like, whoa, what? Like, and then on the other side of that, if I'm not willing to say Trump is the greatest thing that's ever happened on this earth and he walks on water, then I'm a dumb libtard. It's like,
well, that's an exaggeration, but okay.
My point is,
but the first grouping of stuff you said was actually true. I don't know anybody that thinks he walks on water, but go ahead.
I've met quite a few Trumpers who think that this dude
think he walks on water.
Thinks he can do no wrong. And to criticize him in any way, shape, or form, then you're just a dumb libtard. Now, if you want to take things and be semantic here and take me literal, because I don't think there's a human being on the planet that legitimately thinks that he walks on water unless it's like a puddle on the floor. My point being is, they go to these extremes and everybody just goes to their corner. And if you're not willing to fully jump into that corner, then you're the enemy. And I just don't think anybody wins in that equation there.
Well, here's what I'm thinking so far. What you said, unfortunately. When you first of all, we didn't hear about the shooting originally, right? So then there's the silence of it. And then the videotape comes out. So then you have a whole grouping of individuals that get upset that we had to wait for there to be a video to come out. Well, because the video sheds more light than just the 911 call, which, by the way, you guys all didn't know about the 911 call prior to the video. Right. But the video gave you some sort of emotion. Then you might have drawn your own personal conclusions just from the video. But then you hear the 911 call. Now, that should draw more thoughts and more ideas about what it is. And then you start thinking about, well, who's videotaping it? And that should draw a little bit more about the situation. Then you now see a story about a man that matches that person's description on a construction site, within a construction site. Then that should draw a little bit. What I'm saying is that's what happens when you're on a jury, right? When you're on a jury, the defense and the prosecution start bringing out facts, and they start giving you details, and they start providing things to back up those facts.
Well, they have context.
Yeah, what I worry about is we're all acting like jury members, but the whole way our emotions and everything get sucked in is that we start calling things fact when, wait a minute, we're just getting things that might not even be considered evidence. We don't even know if that's who it says it is and if that's happening. Like you said, you don't even know who shot. Now, everybody would probably tell you, Trinity, you hear the gunshot, you see him holding a gun. The reality is we don't know. I mean, remember Kennedy. We don't know what gun shot who, where. We're still arguing who shot John F. Kennedy.
Actually, I mean, what have you? Who are they saying fired the shot? The guy in the back of the truck or the guy fighting with him?
No, the guy fighting with him.
Okay.
So that would be dumb. The guy in the truck is shooting at his own dad or brother.
I don't know what was going on, man.
But that's the point, right? The point is that we're in a country where, regardless of what side you're on, we're supposed to be able to gather like intelligent people and hear both sides of the case. Because at the end of the day, it's a tragic story when anyone's life is lost.
Yes.
But it's also, and that's a big word, it's also a tragic story if anybody gets unjustly accused for the murder of that horrible accident that already happened. Yeah. And there's a lot of people in prison right now based on inaccurate information. We have people brought out of jail for DNA, it seems like all the time. Yep. So in a world where we know there's people in prison incorrectly and should be let out because they were judged and they were tried with lies and manipulation and biases. How are we all supposed to believe that only goes in one direction? It doesn't just go in one direction. That can happen to any of us. Yep. And since it can happen to any of us, we have to protect that basic thing, which is we all should get due process. Meaning, as much as we are right now upset at these two gentlemen for what they did to this young man, they still deserve due process before we allow our emotions to get so out of control that we don't even hear any more of the facts. So whenever we see anything new, oh, that's not him. We never see anything new. That's not a big deal. He didn't take anything from the site. Well, then I can say, well, there's no drill or money sitting there either. But the point is that you should not be on the site. And so we can argue this.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, unfortunately, if you are a white man and you say anything but that guy should not have been killed, he was killed in cold blood, then you're a racist and you're unwoke. Where in
Yep.
reality, no, man, we all should be like, hey, this doesn't look good. If anything, the videos show us that we need to look into the situation further. And if they find them to be guilty, as some of you believe them to be, well, then you got to believe in the system. The system is going to handle it. Of course, they would handle it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
This isn't 1960, by the way. So we can't always reference 1960 and act like that is the way it is now. And I'm not saying that doesn't still happen, but it happens on both sides in many different communities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why Lady Justice is blind, right?
Right.
I mean, she's not supposed to see the biases. I think the mistake a lot of people make in these situations is, once again, they're so stuck in their tribalistic way of protecting their own, whoever that may be, that, they don't realize two things can be true, right? And I say that all the time because for some reason, a lot of us seem to kind of tend back to that basic idea that if this is true, then everything else is wrong.
Right.
But two things can be true, right? And so, for instance, they could say, no matter what that guy did, he shouldn't have died, so those people are wrong. Okay, I'll agree in the sense of I didn't see anything that the black gentleman was doing as death worthy, right? Walking into a construction site, even if he took something, I don't think you should die for that. And so while I will agree that it is true that the other two gentlemen potentially escalated things to a way it should not have gone, I'll agree with that. But that also doesn't absolve the other gentleman if he was in places he shouldn't have been, if he was running from people, and if he charged. So two things can be true. And if both of those things are true, well, obviously the black gentleman can no longer be tried in a court of law because he's dead. He's already received his punishment, unfair as it might be. But now I think the white gentlemen should have their punishment as well. And if they legitimately, escalated the situation where it did not need to go, if there's nothing else, no other facts out there that I'm not aware of, based upon face value, then there should be some sort of punishment. Because we can't have people out there just randomly shooting people because we think they did something wrong. Now, obviously, that's a problem.
Well, even before shooting, look, man, this happens when you bring a gun to the party, man.
Yes.
And unfortunately, look, I was in a situation, multiple situations, but the last one, and they completely changed my life. I was in the group that brought a gun to a party. Now, mind you, my friend was probably never intending on pulling off that gun. I mean, firing that weapon. But just like in that video, the other person grabbed the weapon, and as soon as the other person grabbed the weapon, I don't think my friend had a choice at that point in time. We were outnumbered, and as soon as the other side grabbed that weapon, boom, 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 shots were fired, people got hurt. Now, that is the unfortunate thing. Once you bring a weapon to the party, this can happen. But I would also been on the other side where we grabbed the weapon. I've been in a situation where my friend grabbed a weapon from somebody and just took it right out of their hand. Now, luckily, that dude didn't fire because we would have been on the receiving end. But who grabs a weapon? So these are all things that we can all joke and argue about and discuss. But I think at the end of the day, this will be made into a much bigger issue. But the real issue that needs to be talked about is how we're all willing to just fill in all the gaps of the narrative when it fits you, instead of just keeping a calmer head and just looking at it as what it really is. And it's a tragedy regardless. It's a tragedy for everyone involved. And yes, I said everyone involved because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think we tend to lose our subjectiveness, our like when it comes to this group mentality, man. It's just basically, it kind of just typically boils down to that person's a part of my group, so they're innocent no matter what. And I think that's where mistakes happen, and that's what creates some of this resentment that we have, because in the cases that it's justified, I don't think anybody really gets too fed up with. It's the cases that aren't justified, that's when it starts to create this discord between everybody, right? Like, if I don't personally know of anybody out there myself that would say that those two guys, if the narrative I'm seeing a lot on my Facebook feed and everything else, right? Like what I've seen, there's a lot of people out there who think that these two white guys basically saw a black kid and wanted to execute him. They're making it sound like the KKK is alive and well and they're out there just lynching black people. That's their perspective that they're trying to share personally. Now, I don't personally know of anybody, And I don't think any normal, rational, reasonable person thinks that's the case. I seriously don't think that these two white dudes were just sitting on their porch, minding their business, and say, "Oh, there's a black guy, let's go kill him."
Right.
But it sucks because that's what it's being made to seem like. And so when it comes out and they go to court and they find out that that wasn't the case, that now starts to draw a line of resentment between the people who were trying to say from the beginning, "Hey, let's be reasonable about this." I don't think that's what they were doing. They might be wrong, but I don't think they're doing quite what you think they were doing.
Right.
And so it creates this level of resentment of us versus them. It just reinforces this distance between everybody. To whereas in other situations, you know, like if they were, let's say the situation was different and they were legitimately doing that, I can't imagine anybody, white, black, Spanish, whatever, being like, "Oh yeah, they should get off. That's cool." No, I think it's
Not enough people. Even if there are, it would never be enough to be.
yeah, it wouldn't move the needle. I think the majority of people would say that's ridiculous, and those people should be either in jail or death penalty. That's ridiculous.
Well, lucky for them, there is a 911 call that verifies some of their story right now, where they're saying some of the same things that they'd said afterwards. What I find troubling though is that the news how they're using it, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in such a political climate right now. The blue and red is such a war against each other, right? And the blue has so many more media outlets than the red. So the red has this many media outlets, but they have the most powerful person in the world on their side that has a broad reach. But then the blue has every media outlet available to them, and they're using it like crazy. For instance, they keep saying jogger, 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 jogger. That is something that obviously prosecution would argue, right? And we all know that. If someone would say, like if I go out there, if I go into my neighborhood right now, and I'm not saying he did this, I'm just saying if I would go out in my neighborhood right now, and just run from an incident. Let's say I hit Dana and I run, and the cops pull me over. I could just say I'm out for a jog. Now, if the media picked that up and says I was just out jogging, and the cops pull me over and then accuse me of beating my wife, you know what I mean? In other words, you can't even use the word jogger. That has to be proven that it was jog. And trust me, they're going to say, well, what was he wearing? Is that what joggers wear? Is that the clothes that joggers wear? Is that the shoes that joggers wear? Is it? That is how we argue cases. And whether we like it or not, all that is in place because of those details making or breaking somebody having a life sentence, man. You're talking about life sentences or a death sentence. So we should all want the facts. We know the dead guy already had a sentencing. He's dead.
Yep.
He can't come back. But we still have live individuals who we have to protect that life sentence or death sentence from being something that we all can say, that is why we believe in life sentences, or that's why we believe in death sentences. In order to feel good as a people, that people get life imprisonment for a decision one day, 1 minute of your life, or death because of 1 minute of your life, well, then you better be sure. We better be sure. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying. And look, it looks damaging, but
it doesn't look good.
But don't get mad at anybody because of that little bit of information they're seeing, they're not saying, yeah, lynch them. You know, I mean, come on.
You know what it reminds me of, actually? Oddly enough, when you were saying all that, the first thing that popped in my mind, and I know I had this in the personal training field as a master trainer. I'm 100% positive you had it as well in your trainings, but standard of care. Meaning if I was training somebody and they ended up getting hurt, in order for them to decide whether I'm liable or not, they would have to have other experts in my field look and see if I followed the standard of care. Meaning, did I basically do normal things that most people who are trained with what I have in that situation do? They're not saying what I did was right. They're just saying, is it the standard of care? Meaning, was it basically just an accident or was I negligent in some sort of a way?
Right.
That was the first thing that popped in my head when you were talking about that. And I think that we have those in place for a reason, because it would be easy for somebody to say, oh, this dude was at my house training me and he hurt me. And I'd be like, well, no, this is what I did. Well, that's wrong. You should have known better. Or in your case, somebody comes and sees you and they go off and they do something crazy afterwards and they want to blame you for it, or something you said or didn't notice or whatever it is. That's why we have to have those things in place. And when it comes to these situations, it's the same thing. We have to have a standard of evidence. Like, we have to have, okay, well, were you jogging? Well, okay, what is this? What is a standard of, like, how do I know if you were really jogging or not? Because as you pointed out, anybody can say that they were jogging. Like, there was a gentleman who posted a video. There's a video going around right now on social media as well, where there's this white gentleman decided I don't know what his intent was. I don't know him, so I'm not going to claim to know his intent. It just
Huh.
seems kind of sketchy to me. But it was a white dude who put up a video of himself running in his neighborhood, shirtless with a TV in his hand, saying, "I ran through my whole neighborhood with a TV and I didn't get shot." And his statement or his belief that he wants people to walk away from that is black people are out there getting murdered in the streets and it's not happening to white people. Now, I don't understand the what he was hoping to gain from that, other than maybe followers and a bunch of attaboys. I don't know.
I
But
don't know.
my first thought when I saw that was standard of care, right? My first thought was like, well, hold up. First of all, you know, you look like you were jogging because you had no shirt on and you had gym shorts on, and who knows what that was in your hand. Secondly, what kind of neighborhood was it? Were there any burglaries in the area at the same time?
Right.
There's so many other things that go with that that aren't equal. It's like a false equivalency. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing because it's your team. You want to just throw out any critical thinking, and to be honest with you, it kind of makes you dumb when you
Yeah.
turn into tribalistic stuff and you no longer think just normal rational things. You know, and we're talking about people's lives here. Like that's a problem. Like pump your
And
brakes a little bit because if the table was turned, you know, every guy watching this at some point or another, be it you know you actually physically did something or you worry that you might be accused of something. Every dude in here with all the Me Too stuff at some point had to stop and like, whoa, like should I say somebody's pretty now or should I hug some? Like immediately your intentions were called into questions, even though you know your intentions aren't bad. Well, it's the same thing, right? Like we don't know what these two guys' intentions were. Like, and you can't tell that from a 48-second video clip. I don't know what led up to that. I mean, and that's why, like you said, due process. We have a jury, we have evidence. We have to pull in the 911 call. We have to pull in the context of what's been happening in the neighborhood. There's all these other things, you know, because one of the other things I'm not hearing mentioned at all, and I read it early on, but they neglect a lot of these people who are saying these two white people are like the devil, essentially. A lot of them are forgetting to mention or neglecting to mention that it appears to me that the other guy had some mental issues and some previous arrest records associated with that. So my point is, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. That doesn't mean he's guilty. Just doesn't mean he's not an innocent angel either. Like let's not pretend like this dude was a saint walking around, you know, rescuing people from burning villages and stuff. And so it's life is gray. Life isn't black or white. Life isn't us versus them. There's gray areas there, and it gets complicated. And I think the more that we try to attach ourselves to one and only group, and it's us versus them, that's only good when you're on the winning side. You know,
Yeah.
when you're not on the winning side, when your group is smaller, it's not so fun anymore, and you feel just as justified as the other side does oftentimes.
Yeah, see, I haven't seen some of that other stuff, but that's unfortunate because that's the kind of stuff that when you have a defense attorney, that's what they look for. That's why defense attorneys get such a bad rap with people. They look for anything to protect their client. I mean, and they look for anything, to unfortunately paint the dead person or the person that got raped or the person that got shot or anything as not so innocent or as somehow just giving you any kind of feeling that it's not your average good person. Like,
Sure.
I mean, this reminds me of the Trayvon Martin thing all over again. I still think that case alone, Trayvon Martin deserves a lot more discussion now.
Yep.
Now, had that other dude not been such an idiot in front of a camera, a lot of
Dude, Zimmerman's a
yeah,
that dude's a
Zimmerman could have,
moron.
but even past that, you had to look past the moronic comments or the stupidity on his end and still look for just facts.
Yeah.
You still had to look for just some basic things.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's what's hard in all these cases is that we make all kinds of judgments, but you get tried right in front of everybody. You get tried through the media, and it's just like when you said pump the brakes. I think that's the best thing you could do because this is what makes it dangerous to me. There's somebody out here right now. There's somebody out here catching hell for that whole case.
Yeah.
There's some kid maybe not in school right now because nobody's in school.
Sure.
But there's somebody that's going to get their ass kicked one way or another because of this case.
Yeah.
There's some group of black kids that are going to attack a white kid. And there's some group of white kids that are going to attack a black kid, all because of this case, and all because of our irresponsibility as adults to be a little bit more peace news giving rather than drama and fire starting. This is the media. The media is this. The media likes to stir the pot.
Well, they need ratings.
Because that's what makes people view things. You know what I mean? People like car accidents. People love hurricanes and tornadoes and all the damage that it creates. And it's unfortunate. Nobody wants to take credit for it. Look, I'll take credit for it. I admit it. I love it. That's why reality TV has what it has, the kind of ratings that it has, right? We love that stuff. And I'm no different. But when it involves human life, and I think because I take it so personally because I was involved in one, anytime something like this happens, you don't know everything that happened. You don't know all the players involved. Look, my whole life changed dramatically from a couple minutes of decisions.
Yeah.
Just a couple minutes of decisions, man. And I'm very fortunate to have the freedom I have right now. But it's so sad when I watch anybody go through this on both sides, because I look at both sides and be like, wow, none of their families' lives will be the same after this. But let's not make it worse.
Well, and so to kind of ease up off that particular case and to bring in other instances of what we mean, there's a couple that pop into my mind right away. And kind of, I used to crack on you a little bit when it first started happening. But then as things continued to get kind of out of hand, I felt myself in the same position. With the whole red-blue political thing, pro-Trump or anti-Trump.
Yeah, you used to call me Trump lover, and it was like,
well, some of that's because I like busting your balls a little bit. But here's an example, right, of something that happened. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I think one of the media people asked Trump a question about something about the discrepancy in deaths or something like that. And he told her she should go ask China. And then they kept jumping they kept jumping all over him, and he kept trying to move past it and get to another question. And eventually they didn't want to let it go, and they kept kind of like, the next person would then piggyback on her question when he obviously didn't want to answer. So he finally was like, okay, and he called the meeting, right? And so the problem with that is, like, immediately a lot of them were like, well, why did you ask her that question? Because she was as an Asian American or whatever. She was obviously from an Asian country, looking at her from her characteristics. And they associated that because he doesn't like women and he doesn't like Asian people. But the first thing I thought of, and I'm not a Trump supporter, I'm not anti or for him, I don't really care, to be honest with you. He doesn't really control my daily life. My first thought when I looked at that was, hasn't he been saying all along with many other people, that it originated in China from Wuhan?
Yep.
And so to me, that's what I took that to mean was, if you're asking for discrepancies or why this, and this, you need to go ask the people who started it. It just so happened that she was, Asian and a woman asking a question. But the problem is we're so tribalistic these days. Like, our common sense and our critical thinking just goes right out the window. It's like when you're looking for something, you're going to find it whether it's there or not, right? And when you're looking for him to be, if you think already that this dude is a racist and he hates women and he's just this horrible human being, then there's going to be no shortage of things for you to find to confirm that. But that goes with anything in life, right? Like, if I think that my wife is cheating on me, I'm going to find it, whether she's actually doing it or not. Every time her phone rings, in my mind, if I think she's cheating on me, it could be her mom texting her about dinner tomorrow. In my mind, oh, that's your boyfriend texting you. Like, that's what happens when you get so convinced into something. You stop worrying about factual information, and it's all about a belief system. And that tribalism, to me, is what's destroying us right now as a society. Is nobody? It's like all these little individual teams out there. And we're not, man. We're in one big team, and that's called we're all human. We're all in this together, and we're all doing our best, and we're all failing miserably. Like, what was it? Not to bring a biblical thing in here, but let the Houston instant cast the first stone. Like,
right.
Slow down a little bit here.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I was watching that whole deal, and here's the sad thing about it. Watching a press conference where, the same media keeps saying that he's the one that's aggressive. Man, he was just trying to report testing, right? Yeah. He has this guy up there, and they're talking about all the testing they're doing and blah, blah, blah. Every question seemed to be about, well, how is it that you guys here in the White House can test your people all the time, but when is it going to be where everyday citizens get the same access to testing as you guys have here in the White House? But not long prior to that, it was about, how come you guys aren't testing anyone in the White House? Yeah. So he simply said, look, man, there's nothing I can do to win with you guys. What if we don't do testing, then you say, why aren't we doing testing? Then we do testing, and then you say, well, it's not enough testing. Why don't you give us testing? We're just here to report how many tests are available to the public. But all they wanted to keep going back to is over and over again, is what about all the people that are still dying? And clearly, even though the testing is not working in your White House, because there's people within the White House that have now been tested positive. And so how can people go back to work safely? How can we be safe as Americans if you can't even be safe in the White House? And he said, hey, listen, this is the real world here. This happens. Look, it's still relatively safe. We caught it early. We're doing this, and everything is protocol. Like every answer I thought was really good. I'm like, oh, he's actually doing really good. And he was holding back, but they just kept going and kept going and kept being negative. Finally, when that person asked again about what do you say to the deaths, he goes, why don't you go ask China? And you know how he always says China.
He pronounces China in such a weird way.
You, she had a mask over her face. Then she removes the mask and she goes, can I ask? And now he had already moved on to the next person. Asked the other person what to ask. But instead of the other person asking a question, the other person stayed quiet and allowed that lady to keep going on. Or why are you calling me out specifically? He goes, I'm not calling you out specifically. I just said China earlier, and I'm saying it again. I would say it to anybody. China's the one that was responsible. He goes, go ahead. Back to the lady. He went back to the lady. He says, go ahead. And she didn't talk again.
Yeah, so then he skipped her.
So then he skips her and goes to somebody else. And then that lady didn't talk. So since they didn't talk, and the Asian American woman kept on, asking, why me? Why me? Why me? Is this a racist kind of thing? By that kind of. And he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. Because it gets to the point of, well, what do you want me to say? You guys clearly have a narrative you want to draw. He knows who in that room or who in that press. He knows every single one of them. He knows what they write. He reads everything, knows your political stance, knows the way you slant everything. So, of course, if he's done with you, he's done with you. And look, at the end of the day, you used to make fun of me because I would just defend him and say, hey, man, I mean, I don't think that's not the way I heard it. I didn't hear that. I'm a Mexican and I didn't hear it like that. You know what I mean? I can read between the lines because I mean, we've all had friends that talk a little gruff. They may not sound so polished or whatever, but at the end of the day, they're good people or they mean well. We all have friends and buddies like that.
Sure.
But we also are in a situation that if you grab us by one sentence in our life and try to call us racist or xenophobe by one sentence in our life, that's horrific.
Context matters.
And what I don't like is that Blue has taken the action of calling everything xenophobic and racist that Red does. And Red has taken the stance that everything you do is so off base, you're not even focused on the prize, which is keeping us successful. So there's this fight where I even had someone, this is sad because this is a really intelligent man, a well-learned man that I respect a lot, actually looked me in the eye the other day and said, I'm really happy that financially the country is tanking right now so that he can't take credit for doing better than Obama.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
I was shocked that this man just told me he was happy that we were financially all like sucking right now.
Yeah, that sucks.
And I was like, that right there is the problem. That you want him to fail. Our American system, and I'm a registered independent. When Obama was in office, I didn't want anyone talking about Obama in a negative way. You can question all you want, but don't be disrespectful to the office of the presidency. And I would defend it all the time. So all my Republican friends thought I was an Obama person, only because I'm respecting the office. Now that Trump's in charge, even though I didn't vote for him, I'm all things respectful to the office and to what it means. So now I look like a Trump supporter. Look, I'm neither a Trump supporter, I'm a president supporter. I wasn't an Obama supporter, I'm a president supporter. And so on and on and on. If we're not going to teach our kids to respect an office, disagree, question, but don't be volatile, aggressive, and just lie. I mean, if you can't say nothing good that Obama did, then you're an idiot. If you can't say nothing good that Trump did, then you're an idiot. But that's my opinion. It doesn't really mean you're an idiot. It just means that you just have no validity because you paint everything with such a broad stroke. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and that, to me, is part of the issue with the tribalistic stuff, man. Is just you're no longer using critical thinking skills, right? And I have one more example that was kind of a controversial thing, but I was and it actually directly impacted, in a sense, my daughter, and it kind of, that's what originally got me kind of fed up with some of this stuff, to be honest with you. And this was months ago now, but it was back when that stuff that happened, and I think it was Charlottesville, where the protesters were going against one another, and the gentleman decided to drive his car through the thing and kill that poor girl. Afterwards, Trump came out, and he made a comment that pissed everybody off and said that there was fine people on both sides.
Yes.
And that pissed everybody off. And that was the moment for me that I kind of lost some respect for society, if you will, because I think there was very fine people on both sides. I don't think every single person on both of those sides were the extremes. I think a lot of them were just normal people who maybe put themselves in a situation they didn't realize was going to turn that way until afterwards. And I say that because I watched a Vice News story about that whole situation when it was going on. And one of the things that they put out there, that there were people out there in the what they were calling themselves, anti-Nazi movement, if you will. Because the media turned it into Nazis first, non-Nazis, but I don't think everybody on this side was a Nazi. Regardless, first of all, Nazis died out in World War II, so they don't exist anymore. Regardless, the people who were on the supposed good side, and self-admittedly so, I'm watching this show where they're talking about it, and they're admitting to it because they feel so justified. They were throwing bags of urine on what they perceived to be a group of Nazis. Now, you didn't know these people specifically. You've never met them. You don't know what their true stances on anything are or why they have said stance. You just saw a group of people who thought differently than you, and you felt justified to take a bag of urine. I'm not talking about urine. You peed in a bag and threw it on somebody. But you're going to try to tell me you have the higher ground now, or you have the moral high horse because you believe differently. But yet you can't tell me that person that you threw urine on, you can't tell me their name. You can't tell me where they come from. You can't tell me what their specific stance on anything is. You just chose to buy into the tribalism and say, there's somebody different than me, I'm going to throw a bag of urine on them, and they're wrong, I'm right. No, dude, you're just as wrong in that situation. So I think there was idiots on both sides, and I think there was very fine people on both sides. I think it was a situation that got way out of hand, and I think the media helped it by pumping it up and telling everybody and showing it and got them all fired up. So everybody wanted to come down there, and it was just basically a perfect storm for something terrible and tragic to happen, and it did. But the problem I had was my daughter was basically walking around saying Trump is a racist. And I was like, okay, why do you say that? And well, he just is. And they're promoting it as fact, like factual information.
Yeah, they are.
But I was like, well, wait a minute, what did he do to do that? What did he do? She couldn't really come up with anything. She just said that's what they were saying. And I've had conversations with other people, and they would tell me specific instances that they interpreted it as that, but then I would show them later proof that what they thought was said wasn't actually said. I would show them like transcripts from the speech. That was never said. It was somebody else's interpretation that you are now running with. That is the problem with tribalism, is you don't think anymore. You just get hyped up into a certain thing, and stuff that isn't fact instantly becomes fact now. Yep. And the problem I have with that is, at the moment, it's a straight white male, I'm like public enemy number one at the moment. And so it won't be long until things could get really nasty for me, and I'm not interested in that. I don't think it was right when they were lynching people and slaves, and I think that was all horrible, but I also don't think we should go to the other end of the extreme and start basically bashing every white person you see either. And I can see that happening. It's already happening. I don't feel comfortable saying half the things I said to you without the context of being able to explain my stance on things, which is why most people won't see me posting things on Facebook, because you don't get a lot of explanation. You get like a couple of characters and they make their opinion up. And so it's already happening. And I would not want to be labeled a racist because somebody took something out of context or misinterpreted something I said. So I damn sure I'm not going to do it to somebody I don't even know.
Right.
And I think that's the problem.
Well, and we've talked about this before, but that's why I'm bugged about anyone that flies under the banner of intolerance, and yet they're so intolerant to views that are different than their own. Yep. And it's so okay to call someone else names on the other side, but then you go, oh, don't bully or use names, or words are hurtful and painful. I mean, it's just, it's you have to lead by example, right? And if you're gonna teach our children, and you are teaching my children, by the way, my kids, I have an 18 and 20-year-old, and yes, they have a mind of their own, but I trust so many of you to help me raise my kids. I trust so many of you that are in positions of power or positions of media to help my kids be a lot more tolerant of all people, including those that we disagree with, for the future, to have a better future. We've come so far. So when the media plays into our fears and plays into this Rodney King mentality, which, look, there was a day that it was exactly like
Yeah,
that. I used to get pulled over in LA. I would be on the side of for a regular traffic ticket. I was on my knees with my hands behind my head for a traffic ticket. Yes, it was bad in LA. But you know what? Today, it's very different. So if you're thinking that we need riots or we need a race war to get there, then you are a part of the problem, because you have that kind of control and you are creating miniature race wars all over the place. But mind you, you keep playing politics on the news like this, and you keep painting, blue to be so this and red to be so this, you are going to create a volatile situation for a lot of people.
Yep.
And you have to ask yourself, is that what you really intended when you said, child, I want you to be intolerant. Child, I want you to be loving. I want you to be caring. I want you to speak about love. War is not the answer. Violence is never the answer. Saying things, and watch your words, because words are very painful and hurtful, and it can cause trauma to the other person, unintended. If you believe all that, then stop, because you are doing it, and you have the power of influence. Meaning, you're the one making the movies right now. You're the one doing all the news channels. You're the one writing the history books. You're the one doing so much of this stuff. And I really do fear that all of this that we're experiencing right now is going to be incorrectly written and documented because of that power of the pen. And we know how powerful that is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so for me, I think that's I've said it numerous times during this, but I think critical thinking, man, that really kind of boils down a lot to that, man. I try not to think of any new situation as a male, as white, as a tattooed individual, or whatever other characteristics that I have that separates me from anybody else. I try to first come at it as, what's the truth? Whether I like it or not, what is the truth? And then I will respond to whatever that truth is. And I also keep in mind that truth is 360, right? Truth is not just my perspective or others or other people like me. Like, there is weight and merit to everybody's perspective, but at the end of the day, you also have a certain amount of facts that we all have to agree on. And then from those facts, we kind of look at everybody's truth and we come up with some sort of a resolution. And to me, I think that's the way we go about doing it. We have to hear both sides out. We have to come up with some sort of a reasonable solution. And to me, this tribalistic way of thinking is detrimental to everybody. And I agree with you that it's going to create. I don't think the people who are instigating it. First of all, I don't think a lot of them have malicious intent. I don't think the person that I'm seeing in videos, like accosting somebody because they have a MAGA hat on at a Starbucks and like laying into them, I don't think that they have malicious intent. I don't. I think that they're hurt. I think that they're misguided. I think that they're ignorant in certain things, and they're lashing out because that's what they see as acceptable right now.
Right.
So I'm not going to chastise that person and throw them away, because then I would be a hypocrite at that point. So I'm going to try to understand them and let them know, hey, that's not the way of going about it. But I do believe if we don't figure out a solution to this soon, it's going to get out of hand. And when people think that drawing lines in the sand solves everything, no, it doesn't. It just creates enemies. And I think that's kind of where we're moving towards, is more groups are starting to draw lines in the sand. And when we do that, something's going to have to give. And I'm afraid it's going to be violence at some point.
Well, the sad thing is that in order for it to really change, we have to have faith and trust in the system, man. And so the
we only
system.
Got a few minutes left. So
I understand.
I'm going to give you. This is your.
Okay.
I want
All right.
your graces with your final thoughts, my friend.
I'm just saying that, unfortunately, we have to believe in the system. We have to trust in the system. We have to have faith in the system. And because the system has such a history of not being dependable or there for everyone, every time you see one of these stories happen, it like takes away all the hard work that so many people have done, so many law enforcement agencies and individuals, white individuals like yourself that have come so far in the way you think, and so much more accepting of people like me and others that aren't from your culture. And so I don't like to tear that apart. I don't like to paint it with such a broad stroke as if, It's that bad, because I know that those numbers are shrinking. I know the true numbers of those that hate us and want to hurt us and dislike us are shrinking. But the only way to give it, I guess, fertilizer and now have it grow back in the other direction again is for us to always use the racist word, or always to instead of looking at it with a critical eye, or at least be cautious in where we step, is we always just say, well, there it is again. There's another example. There's another example. There's another example. And we don't allow it to grow and don't allow it to change. Change is happening, man. It's been happening for a very long time, and I'm glad it did. I mean, if it didn't, my brother wouldn't be an attorney today. I wouldn't be where I'm at today in the situation I am the consultant for the Marion County Hospital District, meaning Marion County, brother. Marion County. Do you know where Marion County is? It's in the middle of Florida. It's in the center of Florida. Small population, good old Southern boys. And guess who they have as a consultant? Me. Louis Delgado. This guy, the way I am. And so that is how beautiful this world is. And that's how beautiful it's changing. And let's not let the media constantly bring us back to 1960, because as much as you'd like to take it back to 1960, some of you, and you just want your life to be meaningful, it shouldn't have to be meaningful in that way. Let the world grow, but let's understand that our tribe is also a lot bigger than you want to make it. Our tribe includes people that look different than us, feel different than us, and have a different color skin than us. And definitely, some of your tribe believes in God. Some of your tribe doesn't, and that's just the way it is.
And that's the bottom line.
Amen.
I had to throw a little Stone Cold in there, man.
That is.
That's what it was.
Mexicans don't know what Stone Cold is, bro. I'm sorry.
Oh, please. Just because he doesn't have a mask on for the Nacho Libre.
Mil máscaras, hombre, Nacho Libre.
So, I obviously would echo a lot of what you were saying. On a more positive note, right? It's easy to watch the media, and it's easy to look at social media and think that the numbers are bigger than they are. And what I mean by that is if you watch it, you can very easily convince yourself that there's like these mass like race wars in the streets and just people are going nuts and it's a very volatile area, but it's really not. When you go out in public and you go do your thing, you're going to notice that most people just don't care what you're doing. They're doing their own things. And most people are willing to help and be there for somebody. I mean, at the end of the day, we're, at least here we're Americans, but at the end of the day, we're all human. And so I do take solace in knowing that, right? I try not to ever let what I see on the media or see in social media influence what I'm actually seeing in my actual daily life. In my actual daily life, we're a hell of a lot more together than they would like us to believe. And yes, I agree that things are changing. And we all have to kind of get on board on that, right? But one of the ways that we can best accept change and help change in a progressive way that helps us all, benefits us all, is through critical thinking. And that is the opposite of tribalism. Nothing wrong with having a group that you relate to. I get it. I totally get it. But at the same token, that group that you're relating to should not then cause you to treat every other group poorly because they're not in your group. Because that defeats the whole purpose of why you felt that way in the first place. Having said all that, let me go ahead and pull up my 3 things here that we worked on. So once again, this is the time of the show where we come up with some 3 tips, give you guys some action plans. That's one thing to talk about it, but I don't want anybody walking away thinking that we didn't give them actually any steps to implement any of these things. So the first one I have is be careful with picking sides. Be careful, once again, adhering to any one specific group so much to the point where you lose your ability to process things in a factual manner. I'm a dude, and oftentimes I could go and talk to a bunch of other like married men who are married to women and hear them complain and be like, yeah, women suck. I can get into all that, but I also know that we suck too, right? Like I also know my wife is a fantastic woman. She does amazing things, and there's many times where she's 100% right and I'm 100% wrong, and I have to go and eat crow because of it. So I don't allow myself to go so much towards my biases that I stop thinking critically. Second thing is, don't always assume your side is right. Your side's gonna be wrong sometimes. When you do pick a group, sometimes your side's just wrong. For instance, in the video that we were talking about, if these 2 guys were just sitting around and legitimately saw a black dude running down the street and says, "Hey, let's go shoot him," they're wrong. They're horribly, horribly wrong, and I don't care what they look like. And that's an extreme example, obviously, but the point is, don't get so entrenched in your team that you can't at least acknowledge your own team's faults, because if you don't, you're never going to improve, you're never going to be any better than the others. And then the third one is, the best way to do that is judge things based upon factual information and not beliefs. The problem with belief systems is they're not oftentimes locked down to anything factual. It's a belief, it's a thought, it's an idea. You can't always prove it or disprove it, and you're not really going to change somebody's beliefs. Facts on the information, that's something on the other side. That's something we can all agree on. Those are facts. Those are things that are tangible, that we can actually see. They're measurable. We all can agree on them. And if you're making your decisions based upon facts and not on beliefs, you're going to notice you're going to offend a lot fewer people, and you're going to find yourself in a lot fewer messes. And I think that's what we got, man. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I think we're going to hang out a couple minutes here on Facebook Live, just for anybody who wants to ask some more questions and whatnot. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like this and share it. Make sure you follow us on social media. I'm at the Dharma Guy. He's at the Dope Doctor, at WPSN99. And of course, you can check us out on any of the podcast channels, or you can view the old ones at youtube.com/Dharma Time. But I think that's all we got today. So now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.